And blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You know, I'm sitting here looking at the new president of Idaho State University, not to be too inside, but boy, he looks like a young man. So ISU preparing to expand their Meridian campus. We look forward to that. Our top regional story happens to be that what we first brought you yesterday is the state of Oregon. And if you're listening in, occupied Oregon, we love you. We would love for you to come here if you're a conservative, join us here in the Gem State. But Oregon is the latest state to join a growing list of states that are changing their approach to the Electoral College. Earlier this week, Governor Kate Brown signed off on a bill that will give the state's 7 electoral votes to the winner of the national popular vote rather than join the state winner, which is, again, very, very odd. Oregon becomes the 15th state, along with the District of Columbia, to join the National Popular Vote Compact, which now accounts for 196 electoral votes. However, the change won't go into effect until enough states join to account for 270 votes, enough to clinch an election. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Also, internationally, if you missed it at the top of the hour with Fox News, our own Rachel Sutherland talking about trouble with the Iranians.
Iran did it. That from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, saying the nation is responsible for attacks on 2 tankers in the Gulf of Oman.
No proxy group operating in the area has the resources and proficiency to act with such a high degree of sophistication.
The Pentagon has released a video purported to show Iran removing an unexploded mine from one of the crippled vessels. The U.S. has called a meeting of the UN Security Council today to address the attacks. Secretary Pompeo warning Iran the U.S. will defend its forces and interests. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
I want you to think about those stories. We'll take your phone calls next at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now, Dawn Perimeter from the Philadelphia area to talk about the Plainview Project. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for joining us here in Idaho.
The Plainview Project is a database that received a lot of attention. It named 8 different police departments, including one in Twin Falls, where they did a so-called study on Facebook posts from police officers. The study became the latest thing to make of the anti-police movement, and it was completely skewed research. There was some of the posts were attributed to officers, and they weren't even by officers. Others were extremely biased, and officers were included just because they were supporters of President Trump or the Blue Lives Matter movement.
Well, Dawn, let's talk a little bit more about this. Can you tell us specifically about what was going on in Twin Falls?
In Twin Falls, I think that was the one department where they only included 3 different posts. There's thousands of these in this database, but in Twin Falls, one of the posts was included, and when I say post, they have a screenshot. It simply was included because the profile picture that an officer had put up, and this is their personal page, was of the Punisher blue thin line symbol. It's the Punisher skull is a very popular symbol with officers, and it originated in the Marvel comic Vigilante, it has subsequently evolved to just be a generic symbol for justice. And the blue thin line is actually a tribute to fallen officers. There's probably about 20 of them in this database, one of them being from Twin Falls. And I guess the implication is that officer is somehow violent prone because of this one image. The really damaging part is when you click on these comments, they include not only where the officer works, but his badge number, his salary, It's really classic cop watch movement tactics to put targets on officers' backs.
And we have this across the country, but even in good old Twin Falls, Idaho. That's amazing.
My analysis was that they wanted to, when you do a real study, you're supposed to include different size departments. It's supposed to be random. Interestingly, all of the 8 departments were in states that had gone to President Trump. I really believe they included Twin Falls because they wanted to say that, it wasn't like a huge city. And they just wanted to have like a token state that wasn't on the East Coast or, one that they could say they included. Many of the cities that they include, Philadelphia, Dallas, St. Louis, they have hundreds of homicides each year. And the things that they included in here were it's outrageous. It's incredibly left bias. For example, the other aspect of the post in Twin Falls is they had the Bible verse 13:4, and that's again a popular Bible verse with police. So anybody who had that was included in the database as being problematic in some way. So they don't disclose who actually performed all the research except the head of the project, who's a young Harvard Law School graduate who obviously has no training at all in social science research methodologies. They're presenting the results as if it's statistical data and saying that 2 out of 5 officers are racist or biased, and it's just not correct research. It's completely inaccurate, and things were cherry-picked and taken out of context.
Well, and by the way, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. So what's the purpose of this? And again, Dawn, if you could repeat, they put the officers' information on the social media. Why would they do that?
Well, the stated purpose was to expose problems and bias in police departments, but there's absolutely no reason to put personal data in, such as a badge number, which is something that they have for life, and salaries. That would not even, even if it was an accurate study, there'd be no reason to include that. But again, there's a movement. There's a number of these cop watch groups that have always done this. They want to target police because then they'll dox them. This has immediately resulted in protests and sensitivity training, and officers were pulled off the streets and put on desk duty, mainly because the media presented it with out of context also. So nobody's really looking at the entire picture, and they don't understand the cop watch movement and how they operate.
Well, what would you say to law enforcement and law enforcement families that are listening right now?
I would say that I think that they need to support these officers, and I think that there should be some class action lawsuits in the future, because some of these officers, 90% of them should not have even been included in this. They have an image that is for Blue Lives Matter, or the thin blue line, which is for a fallen officer. And the people who did this study had no concept of what those symbols even meant.
You believe there's still for lack of a better term, a war on the police?
Absolutely. The war on police has now become very connected to the 2020 election. This is sort of a prelude to most of these cities have, in Philadelphia, have very Democratic mayors, and this is a way to get protesters out marching again. And President Trump supports law enforcement, and there were numerous posts with him in there where somebody would say, one post was in there, for example, where he was making a phone call to the husband of a murdered Orlando police officer, and for some reason that was also included in the database. When he referred to MS-13 gang as animals, that was included. And these are just people posting the president saying that. So it's definitely political.
Well, Dawn, we appreciate you. If people want to get a hold of you, what can they do?
My article is on Front Page Magazine. It's called Cop Watch Database Endangers Police, and I'm with the Symbol Intelligence Group, symbolintelligence.com.
Well, we thank you, and we thank you for standing up for the police officers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
All right. There we have it. Dawn Perimeter. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Getting ready for Father's Day weekend. Hope, by the way, congratulations and thank you to all the dads who have made a difference, continue to make a difference. And throughout the morning, if you have, just something you'd like to share that your dad gave you, or you as a dad, a granddad, have given to your friends, your family, your kids, your grandkids, total strangers, you can always share those with us here at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And you know the big questions. Did your dad teach you a skill, like fixing things, changing the oil, working with tools, maybe a trade? Is there something you would do with your dad that you don't do with anybody else, some type of special thing? Or maybe you do that with your kids as well. Those are some of the questions just to kind of percolate the interest. So two of the top stories we're talking about, looks like the Iranians were behind that tanker that blew up in the Persian Gulf. Sarah Sanders leaving the White House. That doesn't really impact us that much. We wish her well. And this issue here about Oregon changing their electoral college rules. If you missed our conversation with Lars Larson yesterday, we covered that. We'd love to get your thoughts on this. Why are these states, these liberal, progressive, devious little liberal states, deciding all of a sudden that they don't have to obey federal law? That's marijuana. They don't have to abide by the rules that's in the Constitution, the Electoral College. What's next? Legalizing prostitution? I couldn't even get through that word out without keeping a straight face. Legalizing prostitution? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Perhaps it's time for some law and order. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling along, just a little over a week away from the Boise Music Festival. By the way, if you're in Meridian tonight, we'll be hanging out with our friends from the Boise Rescue Mission. We would love to see you. We will be there as people are sleeping at the Meridian Speedway. A group of teens and their parents and everybody else, they're going to be there to find out what it's like to live homeless. And we appreciate our friends at the Boise Rescue Mission. We will be there, and we'll be giving away some Boise Music Festival tickets. So if you want to stop by, just look for me. I'll probably have one of my, recently trademarked, not really, penny shirts. So we have Oregon changing the Electoral College rules. We also have Nevada saying you can keep your job if you test positive for smoking weed. That story is available on KIDOTalkRadio.com. Believe that. So, and then you have, I think in New York, they prohibit, or is it Maine, they prohibit drug testing. And you're thinking to yourself, well, what about driving a truck? What about first responders? What about anything else, right? Well, truly, dear friends, dear brothers and sisters, those are exempted. So we have Oregon getting rid of the Electoral College. We have Nevada saying to ourselves, it's okay to smoke weed. And then we have this story right here out of New York. A couple days old, but I wanted to save it for you. I guess it would help if I pushed the button. Well, it appears the button doesn't want to be pushed. You ever just have one of those days? Always better that it happens on a Friday than a Monday. A new bill introduced to state lawmakers this week in New York seeks to fully legalize sex workers. That's right. It's time for the quote-unquote sex workers to come out of the closet of oppression, right? Isn't that true? Because they've been discriminated against and everything else. This bill would fully legalize sex work and eliminate prior criminal records related to most sex work charges. If passed, it would make New York the first state to fully decriminalize sex work. I like how they're not saying prostitution anymore. The bill was introduced in New York in the Senate by two females, while advocacy group Decrime New York helped write the bill introduced in the New York General Assembly. Now, again, do we really need another bunny ranch on the East Coast? And you're going to have some people saying, Kevin Miller, I'm a libertarian. I like this idea.
Well, lawmakers have introduced a bill to decriminalize sex work right here in New York. Under the Stop the Violence in the Sex Trades Act, sex work would become legal in the state and prior convictions would just be scrubbed. Advocates for Decrim NY say the justice system should not be overburdened with consenting adults.
We are trying to change the life of many New Yorkers that historically had been criminalized for using their bodies to survive.
Women of color and trans women would be protected under the law. They tend to be targets of violence in law enforcement. And the bill does not.
How does law enforcement target women of color and the trans women? I love, and this is why people don't like the media. This is right here what Sean Hannity calls the media mob. Right there. Case point, checkmate. The media mob right there going after the police.
Propose any changes to outlawing of sex trafficking and offenses related to minors, both of which would remain illegal.
There we have it. So sex trafficking minors would be illegal, but prostitution would be legal. Repeat after me, everybody. This is another one of those thank goodness we live in Idaho segments. Our time is 6:26. Traffic and weather together on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Dave. So thinking about this, the world that we live in today, you have, of course, I guess, parts of Nevada where prostitution is legal. Now you have a state like New York. Never mind what they're talking about with abortion. You have people in Illinois saying to themselves, hey, this is great. This is wonderful. This is exciting that abortion now is a right. Late-term abortions is a right. I can remember when people were outraged about late-term abortions, and now they cheer. I don't know. Words can't describe. So here we have it coming up. Believe it or not, it'll be the first time in a decade that Congress has taken up this issue. Is it the budget? Is it what to do about the student loan problem? Is it our crumbling infrastructure? Oh, you know, it has nothing to do with that. It's all about making America look bad. We'll talk a little bit about that after the news. And at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, back to this issue involving changing things, changing the Electoral College. The reason why they want to do it is because they've lost. The libs are not good losers. Instead of taking their ball and bat, they want to take the whole stadium. And it's an orchestrated campaign. It's an orchestrated campaign to get rid of the Electoral College. The Electoral College has been around since the founding of the Republic. Who are we? I mean, do you really think that Mayor Pete and AOC are smarter than Jefferson, Madison, and Hamilton?
My big idea is to strengthen American democracy. I'm afraid we're taking our democracy for granted.
He's young. He's openly gay.
This is where the renewal began.
And he's the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. Population, just 102,000.
I recognize the audacity of doing this as a Midwestern millennial mayor.
We sat down with Mayor Pete, as he's known in his hometown, at Peg's Restaurant. That's Peg.
America over time has grown more democratic, and I think that's a good thing. But it's not a one-way street. Sometimes we've taken steps backwards, and I'm afraid we're living through one of those periods. It's becoming harder to vote and harder to make sure that your vote counts.
Now, wait a minute. Is it harder for you to vote? Does your vote count? Let's discuss next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Hey, Maggie. Gotta love the patriotic music on a patriotic-themed segment. KIDO Talk Radio is your home for Fox News Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. That means we get to talk to wonderful young ladies like Tanya J. Powers, our political expert, our sports expert. She's really the expert, at least while we have her on the phone. Good morning.
Good morning.
By the way, I hear you got a call that you're in the running to replace Sarah Sanders.
I can neither confirm nor deny any of that, honestly.
Oh, okay. I'm going to have to work on my sources then on that one.
I do appreciate you starting the rumor, though.
That's basically what I do around here, just start rumors.
I know.
You're the authority. I'm the unsubstantiated speculation.
Okay.
See, here I was going, oh, no, Kevin, you're... Today
Look,
is...
I learned a long time ago not to disagree with you. So when you say things like that, I'm just going to let you say them, okay? I'm not going to dig you out of the hole that you're in.
I see. A welcome day today, Flag Day. I wonder how many people this resonates with. I'm sure people over 40, over 50, but, I mean, how prevalent is Flag Day today, ma'am?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd like to know if there's statistics on, like, the numbers sold or things like that. I'm sure somebody keeps up with all of this. I can tell you that it's less. Our National Flag Day is actually less than 100 years old. The officialness of it is. Now, this has been celebrated back to, like, 1777, but Congress just made it National Flag Day in 1949. There are quite the do's and don'ts list of what you should do, with your flag, how you display it, how you don't display it. There's actually more of the don'ts than there are do's, honestly. There's quite a few. I will hit some of the high spots for you. You're not supposed to wear the flag. It's not supposed to be used in advertising purposes in any manner. No part of the flag should ever be used as a costume or athletic uniform. But those flag patches that you see on military uniforms as well as like fire and police uniforms, those are okay. Do you have a flag lapel pin, like the little replica flag lapel pin?
Right.
If you have one of those, you are supposed to use it or wear it on the left side, not the right.
Oh, that's a tough one. We wear everything on the right side around here.
Well, I'm sure, but that one has to go on the left side according to the etiquette rules of using or displaying the flag. If you have a flag, let's say you've put one outside your home, like on a flagpole or something like that. If it's if it's near the ground, it is not ever supposed to touch anything beneath it. It's not supposed to touch the ground. It's not supposed to touch the floor or water, your prized rose bushes, anything like that. It's supposed to be up and aloft and free.
I see. Do you have a minute?
Now, like I said, it's got to be aloft and free. If you have bunting, by the way, there's a specific way it's got to go. The blue has to go on the top, the white in the middle, and the red on the bottom.
You're really committed to this one.
I am.
All right. I'll get out of
your
way
I feel like it's my calling, Kevin.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'll be making a nationwide tour, making sure everybody's flags are being displayed properly.
The flag police. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now, can I ask you something totally unrelated to this?
Well, you normally do, so sure.
If you have a minute, I need to ask that. Okay. You've covered these press conferences. Heck, you covered Donald Trump's announcement. We practically give you credit or blame, take your side on Donald Trump's election.
That didn't have anything to do with that, but okay.
You've been on the other side of the line of scrimmage. What do you think it takes to be somebody like Sarah Sanders, married, seemingly happily, 3 kids, and yet a job like yours, like a lot of people's, that is so all-consuming, and if she makes a mistake, it's on SNL? I mean, what do you think, to answer questions from people like you that are, you want the specific, you want the follow-up at the highest levels? What do you think that takes to do that job?
I think that takes an amazing memory, first of all. I mean, the kind of questions that gets asked in these briefings and things like that. they're in depth and they can cover anything. I mean, you got to be prepared for anything if you're in a position like that. You have to have an ability to pivot quickly and come up with an answer for somebody. And because when you're dealing with any reporter journalist situation, especially in a press conference or a briefing where anything's fair game to be asked about, you got to be ready to go. Dealing with those particular journalists in the White House press corps, I mean, this is they eat, sleep, and breathe this, and they have they have the credentials and the receipts to back it up, honestly, and they're very professional and good at their jobs. I mean, most of them are. I've met some of them. I know one of them. Our White House correspondent, John Decker. I mean, he's a good example. He is on top of his game. So if you're dealing with a group of folks like that, you better come prepared.
And he loves to talk tennis.
He does. That's a big passion of his. He likes tennis. I mean, he's one of the smartest guys I know. But just a hoot and quite funny. He's also one of those people wherever you go, somebody knows him.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the funniest thing to watch. It's great.
I see. You like the anonymity, I would assume.
Yeah, I kind of do. I kind of like. And by the way, thanks for that backhanded compliment that nobody knows me. I appreciate that.
No, I just got to get a vibe from you. No, I totally get that. Yes.
No, I would much rather be able to be incognito, so to speak. It's easier for me to do my job and get stories and things like that.
Right. You're about the story.
Yeah.
Yep. I get it. Tanya J. Powers, we appreciate you waking up on the right side on this Friday morning.
Thank you. Always good to be on.
All right. Take care. Our great friend Tanya J. Powers, Kevin Miller in the morning. KIDO Talk Radio, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So it is National Flag Day, right? Always great to salute red, white, and blue. And here's something that I'd like to ask you. And usually how this program works is, we go back and forth. We don't take surveys or anything like that. You have a take, I have a take. But a question. When you see people wearing the patriotic stuff, and I'm not judging people. In my day, I used to, wear the patriotic flags. That was my trademark. And I know a lot of patriots do the same thing. And then if you were listening earlier, Tanya J. Power says you can't use the colors, you can't do this for costumes. So I guess that would make the comic book hero, Captain America, that would be inappropriate. Or to use any type of thing inappropriate, right? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So when people wear the flag on the flip-flops, are they showing their patriotism? Like yesterday, I was in Staples in Nampa and received some horrible customer service. Nice people, but, when you go in and you ask somebody for a business card book folder and they tell you they don't have it, they don't know what it is, they don't know what business cards are, I'm embellishing a little, and then eventually you find it yourself after 20 minutes, you're thinking, man, I can see why Amazon is so outstanding. But I digress. My point being, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, I saw these pens that were red, white, and blue, the American flag. There's a couple people. Remember that bus that used to drive around that was painted up like the flag here? One of the city buses in Boise. You have a guy, and I'm very jealous of his car. It's like an old SUV, an older one, that's got the flag. It's, decked out patriotically that way. But to wear patriotic stuff, is that showing your love of country, or is that being offensive, disrespectful to the flag on Flag Day? I may be reaching here with you, and maybe you don't say anything. I can remember people saying stuff to me when I'd wear shirts like that. I don't know if having the American flag on your derriere is showing respect to this country. And when you think about Iwo Jima, you think about Betsy Ross, you think about George Washington, you think about the Star-Spangled Banner. And unlike a member of the U.S. soccer team, which we'll get to, We proudly sing the national anthem. But, just in passing, during this Father's Day weekend, when you see people or when you pick up something, is it a big deal to be wearing flag stuff? Now, you try that on a military base, and people will look at you very differently, right? Coming up next, Congress is looking at reparations and what you're going to pay for a crime that you didn't commit. Kevin Miller on your home for Hannity, KIDO Talk Radio.
The hearing on reparations for slavery is scheduled for Wednesday in the House Judiciary Subcommittee. It'll feature testimonies from writer Ta-Nehisi Coates and actor Danny Glover. Texas Democratic Congresswoman Sheila Jackson is the bill's sponsor, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi supports a reparations study. According to a 2016 Marist poll, nearly 7 in 10 American adults argue the U.S. should not compensate African Americans for the harm caused by slavery or racial discrimination. Rob Dawson, Fox News.
Boy, another divider this morning. I'm trying to think of how we started the day. Oregon getting rid of the Electoral College. We have Nevada legalizing weed. In other words, you can't be fired for smoking weed. We have the situation involving Congress looking at reparations. And yes, again, trying to get rid of the Electoral College because Mayor Pete knows more than the founding fathers. But back to this issue at 580-5436. 580-KIDO. This hearing next week will be in a subcommittee hearing, will be titled The Legacy of the Transatlantic Slave Trade, Its Continuing Impact on the Community, and the Path to Restorative Justice. Oh, my. Now, we've heard of social justice. We've heard of delayed justice, but the idea that we're coming up with this new term, restorative justice. Now, does anybody, regardless of your ethnicity, think that slavery and who was a slave, who wasn't a slave, has any type of impact on the world we live in today? The idea that you have these liberal progressives, not in the state of Idaho, thankfully, talking about white privilege and teaching kids to be ashamed of themselves because how they were born, because they had some advantages. Well, recently, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, we had the NBA Finals. And the NBA is predominantly made up of African-American athletes, black athletes that do incredibly well. Do you think people were cheering back and forth on this because they wanted more people of color or non-color? No, the color they cared about was whether they were cheering for the Toronto Raptors or the Golden State Warriors. And by the way, the Warriors, I'm not a Warriors fan, but what a way to go out last night. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM with Kevin Miller in the morning. Back to the phones. Let's go to Bill. Bill, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for having me on this morning. I had a little out-of-the-box approach I wanted to share with you. You had mentioned something real quick about the 9/11 Victims Fund and shaming about Congress and, why they aren't funding it. And although I'm not saying that they hate America, because they do, for sure, and that's really kind of why I believe they're doing it. But I actually don't believe that Congress should actually have a victims protection fund for 9/11. I don't believe it's the proper role of government.
I think we talked about that a couple days ago there, Tom, or Bill.
Yeah, well,
Bill?
It's been a while.
Sorry, Bill.
It's been a while since I
forgot who you were.
Well, you can call me Ray, or you can call me Jay. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
And then the LGBT traditional family. Christians were.
Weren't we talking about? Wait a minute. Weren't we talking about reparations, the American flag?
We are.
Bill, are you hijacking the show? I think you are, but I can't get your name right. So go. I can't get your name right, so you go ahead.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, at least you talked about the Electoral College this morning. I was trying to take notes of some critical stuff I wanted to mention and to just kind of throw up on the radio, but. The states can't get rid of the Electoral College. Constitutionally, you know that, right?
No. I believe so, yes.
Yeah, they can't. And so any action by the state that actually tries to undermine our federal system, including the Electoral College, has to use Article 5. And the irony about that is that that's something that they adamantly oppose. I oppose it too, but it doesn't make me like the left. Anyway, are you still there?
I'm here, Bill.
Oh, okay. And all of that stuff. So, and then you mentioned restorative justice. You know, I was called for jury duty the other day, and I was denied being on the jury. I was probably one of the most informed jurors in the room, and of course the judge knew it, the prosecuting attorney knew it, and the defense attorney knew it, and they both struck me out. So it's not restorative justice. It's more of a bastardization of justice, and it's about what we've always talked about here is government control over the citizens. And the frustration that most people in government, including law enforcement and stuff, I don't know if they fully grasp this yet, but a lot of the frustration that they're dealing with is created by the government because of the fact that people are not getting the redress that we deserve. So when we go into court and we try to establish justice and operate within their rules, and they say it's their court, which it isn't, and we're shot down because they violate some of the most basic tenets of courtroom procedure, what is the redress for the person? So the person that has been wronged goes out into society and is disgruntled and might drive aggressively or say or speak aggressively, or what you're dealing with is an agitation or a violation of keeping the peace, which is what government was instituted to do. So
thanks, Bill. Kenny in Meridian, we've got about a minute. Go ahead, sir.
I just wanted to touch on a little bit. I've had conversations about that with some of my Native friends and Black friends, and I find it a little bit amusing, and not in a funny sense, but ironic. You know, I'm Irish, and the Irish were also brought over here as slaves. In fact, by my understanding, more mistreated and sold for less money and a lesser of a slave, if you may. And I want to know where my reparations are. And then you got the Chinese. I mean, slavery was a thing of the time, and I just think it's ridiculous. And I want to put in my 2 cents on that because I'm Irish. I want my reparation. No, I don't want anything.